Hi again. I hope at this point in the course we've got a feel for one another when it comes to what is expected and how the course is going to progress with regards to the assignments. As many of you know, one of the most important assignments, meaning one of the most weighted assignments, is the midterm exam, and that date is rapidly approaching. Now, the first thing that I want to do is address the due date of the exam. If you look at your syllabus or in eCampus, it's going to say that the midterm exam is to be submitted by this Friday at 11:59 p.m. I'm going to push the due date back to Monday of next week, so you have a week from today to take a look at the midterm, complete it, and submit it in eCampus. Now, to find what the requirements are for the midterm exam, what you need to do is go into the week 3 folder of content on eCampus. There will be a folder in that week's 3 folder that's labeled midterm exam. Click on it. What you're going to find is a copy of this. It's the midterm review guide. Now, in addition to having this lecture and the midterm review guide, what the guide is designed to do is to help you prepare for this exam. Now, you will note that there are 4 sections to this exam. There is an identification section, there's a short answer section, there is a long essay section, and then of course there is a section where you need to respond in essay format to a question regarding The Jungle, a book that you should have been reading for the last 2 weeks or so. Let's go through this step by step. First, the identification terms. Now at the top of the page there, you're going to see a term bank. Each of those terms are issues that you should have a pretty good idea as to what they are right off the top of your head. On the exam, you will see that term listed, and it will have a colon next to it. Your job is to explain what the term is and how or why it's relevant. Okay? If you have any questions, if you have read all the chapters, you've read all the online readings, you have watched all the video lessons, and you still have no idea what this term is, email me and I'll be happy to elaborate. Okay, that's section 1. It's worth 5 points. Section 2 is your short answer essay question. Now, what you are to do when you see this on the exam is you are to provide a 2 to 4 sentence response to the questions that you see listed below there. Now, first things first, when you get the exam, nothing's going to change. You're going to see these questions in their direct format, their verbatim format as they are right now. What will change is one of these questions will disappear. So instead of seeing 4 questions on the exam, you're only going to see 3. Of those 3, you are only responsible for 2. So what I would do if I were you in preparing for this exam is throw one of those questions out right away. Pick the one that you want to prepare for the least, in other words, the one that you really don't want to answer, and don't worry about that. Prepare for 3 questions. That way, your bases are covered. You are only responsible for 2, and if you prepare for 3 out of 4 questions, then that gets you a get-out-of-jail-free card. Okay, that's my advice for however little it's worth. Okay, but that section is also worth 5 points. All right, skip down to the bottom of the page. This essay, the long essay question, is more heavily weighted than the other 2 sections are. Now, this is a cumulative question, meaning that to answer it successfully, you can't simply focus on one time period in American history, or at least the time frame given. You need to take a much more holistic response to it. So, what you need to do is think about the time periods in which the American government has expanded, whether or not that was a good thing, and the reasons that prompted that government expansion in the first place. Now, we've seen this happen in the class. We saw it with the populists. We saw it with the progressive the progressive movement and later on the Progressive Party. But try to think of some examples of big government or time periods where the government has gotten bigger, and explain what impact that had on American lives. Explain whether or not that you think that's a good thing or somewhere in between. Okay. Again, if you have direct questions regarding this, please let me know and I'll be happy to respond. This section is worth 10 points. Okay. All right, so right now we're up to 20 points in the midterm exam. The last section is going to ask you a question that you'll need to have a background on the jungle, Upton Sinclair's book that you should be reading right now. You need to have a background on that book to answer it successfully. What the question essentially asks you is the main character of that story, a man named Jurgis Rudkis. Is that man really free? You know, America is seen as the land of the free and the home of the brave. But think about the life and times of Jurgis Rudkis. Think about his job. Think about the neighborhood in which he lives. Think about his relationship with the city and with his bosses. Is this a guy that you can truly call free? If not, what limits his freedom? What limits his opportunity? What limits his individualism? Those are important questions, and questions that you need to ask yourself when you respond to this question. Now, one thing that I want to make very clear, this is not a book report. I'm not asking you to give me an overview of the jungle. What I am asking you to do is use the jungle as a tool for our class. How closely did the life and times of Jurgis Rudkis mirror, reflect what we've been talking about in class thus far? You know, how typical is his situation? Furthermore, are there things in American life from 1865 to 1910 that are systematically limiting American freedom? Is Jurgis a really unique case, or can you see this happening for workers, for farmers, for middle class people, all across the board throughout the Gilded Age? There are a few things that you should also note before we end this discussion. To successfully answer this question, you need an argument or a thesis statement. Now, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, a thesis statement is an original argument. This is the case that you're trying to prove. This is your main point of your paper. Okay, it's your argument. Now, to back up your argument, you need evidence. You need evidence from Sinclair, so you need specific passages from Sinclair. You need evidence from your online readings, evidence from the videos, evidence from the textbook. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to count how many pieces of evidence you have, but the bottom line is the papers that support their arguments, their thesis statements, with ample evidence are going to be the ones that will do better when it comes to the midterm exam. That's all I have in the way of preparation for the exam. Now, what I would do, if I were you, is I would print off a copy of this review guide and get to work preparing for the exam. As always, please let me know if you have any questions.